If any of his previous rooms or us listening to his story, all of those times or any indication, I have a feeling today is just going to be full of incredible takeaways and wonderful stories and just sheer brilliance as always.
I agree. I'm super excited for our guest. If you don't know who our guest is, hint, he's sitting in the audience on the followed by speakers. We're going to welcome him up here in just a second. And you can also, of course, make sure that you're following Paris and I on Instagram, and you'll see it there. But we are here for episode number 8 of Anybody's Game. This is a show that Paris and I started a few months ago, where we're interviewing change makers, thought leaders, and just Paris does a much better job of explaining it, so I'll let her do that here in just a second. But we're in the Founder Streams Club. What we do here in Founder Streams is we talk a lot about founders. We talk a lot about startups and investors. And we do a whole host of rooms and content and events. We even actually have a Founder Streams Accelerator that we do, which is currently going on. They're actually going to be pitching this Saturday because cohort 2 is already almost complete. So I want to invite everybody here to join us on Saturday and listen into some great pitches. But we got something to do tonight. So Paris, what are we doing here?
Interview people from all walks of life, different types of individuals, whether they're in business or athletes or philanthropists. This day and age, what we do and how we do it has been transformed because of social media and just what's been made accessible. So every week when we speak to these brilliant minds, we ask them if it's anybody's game, if it's possible these days for anyone to succeed. And what we try to find out is what it's like in their lane, in their area of expertise, and how they did it and what their advice would be for anyone starting out.
Yeah, so just real quick before we invite our guest, we are doing this live, obviously, here on Clubhouse, but we're also on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube, you can go to TF Labs and search for us there, or on LinkedIn. It's on my LinkedIn, and Paris and our guest also shared it. Or on Twitter. So you can just click on my Twitter and you can see what we look like if you even care. But we do take questions and comments there as well. So if you have a question, you have a comment, put it there. We'll do our best to answer it while we're here. Also, we will open up the room for questions here in about 40 minutes or so. So don't leave. If you have a question, raise your hand. We will see it and we will pull you up. So Paris, would you like to do the honors of welcoming our esteemed guest?
It is such a privilege. I mean, his name is at the top of the page, and if anyone knows him, they know the story. But we are joined by the Hemp Heart Titan, Mike Fata. He's an entrepreneur. He's a natural product investor. He's a top 100 health influencer. He's an advocate for growing the organics industry. And last but not least, he is the founder of Manitoba Harvest, which he grew to 100 million and then in revenue. And then he exited for over 500 million. These numbers are insane. Like, you hear about these in like fabled stories, in like long articles in like Bloomberg and Newsweek, and profiles of individuals who've not only achieved greatness but are giving back to the community. And he's one of them, and we get to talk to him like one-on-one tonight. It's really incredible. We're going to find out about creating natural products, what it takes to launch a brand, working up to multiple 9-figure exits, doing it all from the ground up. We're getting an expert take and invaluable insight from someone who's not only successfully created consumer brands multiple times, but he's helping other people do the same thing right now. So if you dream of creating and launching a product, or you're in the process already, this is a room to be in. Mike Fata, thank you so much for being here tonight. So we're going to start right off the bat. We're going to ask you the question that we ask every single guest, but obviously we love to hear it from the perspective of the expertise that you bring and the knowledge that you have about the industry that you're in. So in this day and age, in a world where social media is driving communication and marketing and information and culture, do you think it's possible for anyone to make it, to gain an audience, to brand themselves? Is it anybody's game? so our audiences elsewhere can hear you, not just on Clubhouse. So you do. I just want you to reiterate that the couple last sentences you said, just to make sure that all of our audiences are hearing you.
Got it. Okay. I'm hip to the game now, Paris. Yeah, I think it is possible for sure. Just again, I've only been on social media for a year or just over a year myself, and have learned a lot about social media. And I think that if you're yourself and you put yourself out there, you're going to attract your crowd, and you can do a lot with that in business.
So Mike, if we go back to where it all started, and I've heard your story before, but what made this possible for yourself? I know you pride yourself on the hard work it took to get here, but what was that? Tell us a little bit about that story, and how it became possible for you to get to this point where you're at today.
I figure I've learned a lot in life, and I think maybe just the learnings came earlier, or they were more challenging learnings, and so I adapted. But I grew up poor with a single mom, and learned how to take care of myself and help take care of the family, and that led me to dropping out of school when I was 13 years old to start working. So I've been working full time since I've been 14, and I wasn't educated about health when I was young, so fell prey to the fast food movement, and found myself at 18 years old weighing 300 pounds and being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and decided that I'm going to do something about it, and change my lifestyle, change my health. And I combined my, already then 4 or 5 years of working construction and organizing teams in a construction to get jobs done to putting an effort to start a health food business. And we were successful at starting that business at Manitoba Harvest, and grew it into a successful and large enterprise. So it was a combination of hard work, and then finding my passion, my why, which is health.
Mike, quick question for you. Were you 300 pounds when you started Manitoba Harvest, or did you get healthy yourself and then realize, hey, I can make a business here? Or was it a mutual, or a symbiotic?
I when I was 18, I weighed 300 pounds, and I started a health journey. And that health journey was, I went on a number of I was experimenting with myself, guinea pigging with myself on different fad diets, and lost a bunch of weight. I wouldn't say that I was healthy when I started Manitoba Harvest. I was a lot thinner. I'd lost a bunch of the weight, but then started learning about nutrition and essential fatty acids and plant-based protein, and took my exercise regime up a couple notches. And then being in the natural products industry, I met with a bunch of the other health pioneers and founders of different businesses, which fired me up more. And I learned about a whole bunch of other products that I hadn't been exposed to before that.
Mike, when you're getting started in a situation like that, what did you think was possible for yourself? Like when you were just starting out and you got this idea about starting a company, which we're going to get to. I'd love to know where you were at, where you started out, and what the idea was. But what were you aiming for? Like you explained where you came from, and you mentioned the poverty, story, and just working hard and starting from a very young age. But oftentimes we have dreams and aspirations, but your exits are so massive. What were you dreaming of? What did you think was possible for yourself when you started out?
Yeah, well, I wish I could go back and tell my younger self to dream bigger, because I just didn't know. Again, one of the things about dropping out of school young, I didn't have any formal business education. So I wanted to be successful, which I thought being successful was being a millionaire. So I targeted $1 million in business. I wanted to do $1 million in business, which it took us 5 years, and we did $1 million. And I learned that $1 million was not successful for our business, but that was the dream that I set out. My first dream that I set out to accomplish as an entrepreneur was to make $1 million.
I'll go with a follow-up question, Jonathan. I'm just going to leave it in there because when you answered our previous question, like you mentioned your why, that you figured out your why and why you were doing it. We often hear that we need to figure out our passion and figure that out, and that becomes the driving force of what helps us take action. What is your take on that? Because so many people are like, I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what my why is. So I'd love to hear your perspective and your advice to someone who doesn't have that why yet.
Yeah, I think that it's both passion and purpose. And I could tell you my passion is all things health, but I feel like my purpose is to help share that with the world. And so, yeah, I think for people that don't know what their passion is yet, that's okay. It's like not knowing what your favorite food is yet. You have to go and like nibble and try different things, and you'll know it when you find it, because it'll be the thing that you want to do over and over and over again, whether you're getting paid for it or you're not getting paid for it. And if you can align that passion with a business, then I feel like you're just going to be unstoppable, because you're doing it for the journey, you're doing it for the fun of it. And again, as it relates to health, I can talk about health all day long. I can work on my health. I can help others with their health from a natural and organic food and diet and lifestyle, and it really fires me up. And that's 25 years later. This is my 25th anniversary of changing my diet and getting into a healthy lifestyle.
Jonathan, do you want to jump in, or do you want me to? I'm hogging the mic. So take us back to when you started Manitoba Harvest. How did you start? And what did you start with? Because you mentioned you were doing construction, and you were still very young, and you didn't, like you mentioned, have that formal business degree. Not that any of us who graduated high school had any sense of business teachings at all anyway. So what were you starting with? Like okay, so you had this idea. What was your idea? What did you start with? What did your first 2 months look like?
The first 2 months, well, I put in $10,000 to start Manitoba Harvest, and we had some support right off the bat. My mom was as an administrator at Shoppers Drug Mart, which is a retail store and drugstore in Canada. And so she helped me when I said, hey, how do you register a business? How do you set up, the tax and the different pieces of business? And we just got started. We grew, at that time, we actually, I bought the first drum of hemp seed oil and made 1,000 bottles of hemp seed oil and started selling it to one health food store, but a couple health food stores in Winnipeg in the local market. And then from there, we grew the business, but it was very, very simple. I didn't know what the 1,000 steps were that I needed to know. I knew what the first kind of 5 or 10 steps were to start the business and just get out. And that's what I would tell entrepreneurs. You don't have to have it all figured out. There's no perfection in entrepreneurship. There's a starting, and then there's a continuous improvement from there.
Jonathan, I'm going to just do one quick follow-up. There's a starting and a continuation, but can you just, because we've heard, and I'm just doing it for my benefit and as well as anyone who's in this room who spent time with you in any sort of room, because we know the end story of how successful Manitoba Harvest and Hemp Hearts ended up being. But I would love to know, why Hemp Hearts? Like, what was the initial, it was like, Hemp Hearts is it? Like, how did that even come up in your mind? And how did you even develop it, seeing that it's really the first, like from my understanding, the first product of its kind that did what it did and that was presented and branded the way it was? Am I crazy?
No, you're right. And I had, there was 3 co-founders to Manitoba Harvest. So the Martin and Alex had been working before to lobby the government to legalize hemp, and were just set up pre kind of legalization and pre-commercialization. So I joined and thought, and it was because of my health changes and hemp seeds, a very healthy seed. I thought people were going to change to not being scared of fat and the no fat diet, and they were going to fall in love with hemp seed and the great taste and nutritional profile of hemp seed. And so I literally walked around with bottles of hemp seed oil and little spoons, little sample spoons, and everywhere I went, I had people try it. No, you have to try this product. It's so good. And I think, probably 90% of people thought that I was crazy. And then there was a couple people that it resonated with, and I think it's as I put myself out there, the way that I think about it now, as I put myself out there, I started to find my tribe and started to find people that believed in me. And my journey, and then they tried the product, and they started to fall in love with the product as well. And so it was a million little wins that really added up, and it was the million first customers, I think, that we gained one by one by taking the time to tell them the story, and again helping to resonate with my personal health story, and then making a great product and delivering it to them.
Yeah, I love the great product context of that. And as a lot of people know in CPG is there's brand that you're building, right? You built a really interesting brand, and you've been able to build this amazing brand that is recognizable. Like I was actually familiar with Manitoba Harvest before I met you, and I was like, oh, I've used this before. I was like, I even buy this at Costco, but even well before that. So how did you think of brand in building Manitoba Harvest, and what have you learned from that experience with what you're doing today in investing and supporting founders in the CPG space?
Yeah, if I could go back to school, I think it would have been going back to school for marketing, because I didn't understand what building a brand meant, probably for the first like 8 or 10 years that I was building a brand. We were making a great product, and then trying to communicate what was important to the business. And it wasn't until, we had grown up and maybe like past $10 million in sales, and we started to spend money on doing formal marketing workshops and exercises and brand audits that I realized that it was my core values, quality and transparency and trust, that I'd put onto the business, and that's what Manitoba Harvest started to stand for. And so I don't think I was as clear on how to build a brand, but I had my personal story resonated through the business out to the community, and that's what the business became known for. Now, I would, the second part of that is like, what does that mean to entrepreneurs that I'm working with now? Everyone's got a different story. So I go back to be clear on what your story is, what your path is, and then be open in communicating that out to the world. And that's, I think, the most important thing you could do as a founder, is not only be the CEO or the entrepreneur running the business, but be the person that upholds the brand, the product, the values of the business, and show other people. That's how you build it.
See, that's so important to do, but that could be so difficult if an entrepreneur doesn't have that self-awareness or feels like they don't have that personal side to the story. So I'm wondering, what are the actionable tips for professionals who want to brand themselves, whether it's them personally or whether it's their brand or their company itself?
Well, I don't, I think you got to go and find your why first, Paris. I think it's super dangerous for people to get into business just because they want to make money. If they do, then, and they haven't found their why or their passion, it's probably then easiest to go and I don't like the word copy. So like repurpose what someone else is doing and put your spin on it. Because then it's really just about business. I like the find your why first. And I mean, if you're super passionate about tennis, get involved and make like a tennis ball, or you could be into tennis training and offer that service, or is something that you would do all day long, whether someone paid you or not. I just, again, happen to be, I'm into health, and I'm into product, like food. And so it naturally came to me. And so I'd like entrepreneurs to be in the more of that natural spot than the forced spot. But I think if you are in the forced spot, that you're just trying to get yourself into business, and it may not be the business you're super passionate about, but you want to get into business, is just repurpose with pride. Go out there and find something that's like what you want to do, because there's every example out there, and put your mini spin on it. And I think that'll get you off the ground and running. And then from there, you can listen to your customers, and they'll tell you what they like about your product or service, and what they think you can improve on, and you can plan your continuous improvement from there.
So for the next question, I wanted to know, like, I know we've been talking about social. You are very active on LinkedIn, more than on the other platforms. And you definitely mix, and this is something that we don't see from everyone. You mix the personal and you mix the business. It's if somebody wants to get to know you, but also wants to get to know what you do, I feel like LinkedIn is such a great platform for that. But usually people divide that content, I find, between Twitter, because you have business tips, you have your own personal accomplishments or where you are and your vision for the future. Then you also do all of your other posts about the businesses in there. And usually people keep business on LinkedIn and some of their personal on, and their aspirational stuff on, Instagram. Sometimes it goes to Twitter. So I would love to know how you've approached your social media. I know we mentioned it earlier on that some of these you just recently got on, but from the perspective of a successful businessman who's now seeing certain benefits to apps like Clubhouse and other platforms, I'd love to know how you approach it and how you think about it.
Yeah, well, I like that question because it makes me think a little bit. I didn't have an agenda. I didn't have experience with social media, so probably very similar to business. I stumbled into it, and last March, when the pandemic came up, our trade shows were canceled. I realized I wasn't going to see my industry friends, and I wasn't going to be able to see all the new and great things that they were working on. And then I had a LinkedIn account that I used as generally a business Rolodex, of a business card Rolodex. And so I took to LinkedIn, and I think I put out one of the first post that was my 300-pound weight loss story and what that kind of meant to me. And as I was kind of reflecting back, and a lot of people were supportive of that, and so. And I didn't have a plan to be on Instagram and Twitter and some of the other things that I'm on now. I blame you, Paris, for Instagram because of Clubhouse. But I'm sharing kind of all of me, and that is the business and some of the activities I'm involved in. But it's really my passion of health, and that kind of shines through in some of the personal things that I'm doing. And I'm okay with that on LinkedIn. I think that I've never been good at compartmentalizing, and I don't think it needs to be on social media. Although I do know that some people do put more business stuff on LinkedIn and maybe more fun stuff on Instagram. But I think that the traction that I've got from LinkedIn and some of the feedback that I've got is people can see the real me, and they can. It's more transparent, I guess. So
it sounds like LinkedIn is your favorite platform. And so with that, what tips do you have for people in using LinkedIn? I'm curious if you plan your content ahead of time, or you just kind of go with the flow of what you're thinking? And how can someone leverage LinkedIn, especially someone coming into it later in the game?
Yeah, it's morphed a little bit over the last year and a half, and so when I started out, I wasn't planning any of my content. I'd usually be in the gym working out in the morning, and then something would come to me that I want to share, and then I'd put it together. And a lot of my posts are 5 minutes, and I just kind of type it out, and it all comes naturally. And then there's been a couple that it'll take a little bit more time for me to write out and edit what I really want to distill down what I want to say. But now I find that I do two things. I'm taking there's pictures and videos that I have from the past or from current, and I kind of have those in a folder, and then I use the Notes app when things come to me that I think will be part of a post that I want to share in the future, and I just keep some part of it. But it's another piece that, I haven't been a big copywriter. I've been more of an editor over all the years in business and being part of the brand. Other people have done the copywriting work, and I would just get to edit down the final product. But I'm enjoying writing because it's very therapeutic, and I feel like there's been a number of times that there's been a release after I share something on LinkedIn, and it's freeing for me. So. And I'd like to get more kind of formalized, but like some support. But I don't think I'm a little bit worried that would lose its authentic message. And my number one thing is to be authentic to the entrepreneurs that look up to me and know that anything's possible in their entrepreneurial journey.
Oh, go ahead, Bryce.
Sorry, I want to jump in and just a quick follow up on that, because we're talking about content creation and planning. I mean, I know that you mentioned it, but as an example, when you're talking about your weight loss and the weight loss success story, and I understand that it builds into your story about how you started your first company, but it's so personal. Is that part of the authenticity? I'm just asking because there are so many people in this room who have personal stories of triumph or stories of failures that they've overcome, or examples of hardship, and it just feels like LinkedIn may not be like the immediate platform that we think about sharing it, especially those of us. First of all, you run a company, so it's incredible that you do that, and you're not concerned about doing that, especially when you have employees. But I'm just thinking about how you process it and how you think about judgment, because so many of us are worried about judgment every single time we hit post on, regardless what platform we're on. So I'd love to know your perspective on how you fear judgment, or if you are even concerned about it at all.
No, honestly, I don't think about whether people care about me. I've worked a long time to not think about that, because being and this goes way back, but being a 300-pound person, that I'm already feeling bad enough about myself. Back then, when I used to think about how other people, what other people thought about me, even bullies and people that said straight up what they thought about me, it didn't make my life any easier. So I've done a lot of work on myself to be sure of myself, be confident in myself, and put myself out there, do my best. And so as that relates to social media, I'm feeling really comfortable about the message that I'm sharing. And if people don't take it the right way, they're probably not in my community or in my tribe, but I'd say outstandingly, there's way more that appreciate the openness, they appreciate the authenticity, and that resonates more. So I think that translates for everybody, though. I do say, like, if you're going out there and putting pretty pictures of yourself and not giving the good, bad, and otherwise to the world, then you're missing the therapeutic opportunity. Because there's therapy in putting it out, and maybe that's not LinkedIn. Maybe everyone could say, hey, that's Instagram, or that's Twitter, or in Clubhouse even. I've found a lot of therapy as I've shared some parts of my story through audio with people, and I think that changes other entrepreneurs to maybe give them a different perspective, that they can be open, and it can be beneficial for them as well.
One more before I let Jonathan have the mic back. And on this topic, it's a quick follow-up. What about the likes? The likes and the hearts and do you look at those numbers? Do you care? Like, do you have a metric, or you just post to post?
Well, I would be lying if I said that, some of my posts that are the most engaged didn't make me feel better about the message, or that it had a stronger reach, but I generally don't. I mean, I do take the time to engage with everyone on LinkedIn. I haven't got there in other social platforms because I'm not posting on the regular, but I could just speak with my LinkedIn experience. I engage with people that are either given virtual high fives, or there's a bigger relationship going on. and because I feel like I'm developed friendships and have taken a lot of conversations off of LinkedIn, and I've had over 500 coffee chats with different entrepreneurs over the last year, many that I met on LinkedIn. And so maybe some people see, oh, there's a back and forth happening on LinkedIn, but it's a bigger relationship than that. And so instead of counting numbers, I get excited about when there's engagement, and especially when it's people that I've developed a deeper relationship with.
So Mike, yeah, I mean, it's been great getting to know you here, in Clubhouse and throughout the app and so forth, and, learning from you on the CPG front. And I think a lot of people here get the chance to hear your stories. I love what you're saying about, like that authenticity and, sometimes people are just afraid to share who they are because or what they've been through. Right. So I really appreciate you doing that. What advice would you have, or what are some things that you would tell, someone that's entering the CPG space today, that you've learned from when you started or just how you're seeing the whole environment at this moment?
Yeah, I think the big one is to have a good mentor in your life and business, or a couple of them, either formally or informally. Just because the CPG, especially the natural products industry, the food business, it's a tough business. It takes a lot to be successful and get it right. And I think that if you have good people around you that have done it before or have the scars on their back that they're open to sharing, you can cut down on some of the mistakes. You're going to make mistakes as an entrepreneur, especially in consumer packaged goods. But if you can cut down on some of the obvious ones by having people around you, or mentorship through an accelerator, or even what Greg and I are trying to do, and with the Fata and Fleischman toolbox, like have some kind of mentorship that just cuts down on the amount of mistakes. And that's what I kind of not only say to entrepreneurs, but I offer my hand up to them in a number of different ways, because I think that's I think it's necessary, and kind of in any business, but for sure in natural products and consumer packaged goods.
Yeah, and for those that might not be aware of consumer packaged goods, what would you say the main difference is for say a tech founder versus a consumer packaged good founder, or like what you've noticed when people are either trying to get attention or make partnerships? What's that differentiator for those that might not be familiar with the industry?
Valuation? No, I don't.
No,
no, I was joking around. It's when you're in the product, and I'm sure every business has its unique challenges. I don't know a lot about tech, and I'm fascinated when I hear about different techs and the apps and the stories and just how it's created through its life cycle and when it starts to boom. I think for consumer packaged goods, and it speaks more specifically for food, you're making a product, and then the only way to success is to sell that to someone, and then they eat it, and then come back and buy it again, and it becomes part of their daily ritual or routine. And so when you have to think about that product all the way through the whole life cycle and the consumer life cycle, meaning you got to make a good high quality product, and you have to hold inventory, and then you have to get that inventory to your customer, and then you have to educate your customer about why they want to buy the product. You have and through a retail partner or otherwise sell that product to them, and then follow them all the way into their house in some form, and make sure that the product leaves their pantry or their fridge, gets into their mouth, they enjoy it, and then they go and repeat that over and over again. And so there's lots of different there's lots of different aspects to be successful in the business, because you can make a great product and no one knows about it, or you make a great product and someone buys it and then they have it and they never use it, and you won't find success that way.
Is it different now from when you first started it? Because everything you just mentioned, like obviously it's a checkbox that's extremely familiar to you or to someone like Greg, but to somebody who's in this space, who's just starting out, who has an idea about a product, you did it long before Instagram was what it is today, that so many people create a product, post it on Instagram, buy a few ads, get some ideas rolling. what do you know that they don't know because of all the experience that you have about branding without using social media or without having the ability to reach so many people with just, buying an ad?
Yeah, I think the biggest change, and I mean, I've adapted to it, or our businesses have through the time, but 20 years ago, 23 years ago, when we first started, there was obviously no social media, and I mean, we were still getting our POs by the fax when we just started the business. So it was all about trade shows and consumer events, like being direct with people, but in larger audiences that were focused. So whether that's a health focused show, or it was a healthy lifestyle focused show, like a yoga event, or a mom and me healthy event, anywhere that we'd have a grouping of people that would be target customers, we just go there and advertise to them, tell them why the product's good, sample the product to them until it felt like our lips were bleeding at the end of the weekend, because you literally do that to 10,000 people. Now, that if you can make either strong content, viral content, or paid advertising, you could reach that 10,000 people a little bit easier, maybe. And I think there's still a healthy blend, because in the food business, it's very important to get not only your information into your customer's head, but your product into their mouth. They have to try the product. They got to understand what the brand's all about, but they got to try the product, I believe, to get really excited and hooked on it, and it becomes part of their daily ritual. So even though social's taken on, and you see, and so I guess the difference nowadays, it's harder for sure. There's more noise out there. I could tell you, I remember when the first kind of cold brew coffee launched, and now there's like 50 different cold brew coffee brands, or coconut oils, or even, Hemp Hearts. There was one brand of Hemp Hearts, and now there's probably 20 different brands you can choose from. And so unless it's harder and harder, I think, to truly innovate in the food space, and those companies that truly innovate and stand out are the unicorns, or are the ones that are really growing, and you see, sold, grew the business to 100 million and sold for a couple 100 million, but generally all the ones that are fighting it out because there's 20 different companies doing the same thing aren't those golden success stories, because it's just harder. There's more people doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. Sounds like lots of great competition, and I love learning about it, because I like to eat. So what can I say? But want to do a quick reset of the room, and reset of what we're doing here. So we're in the Founder Streams Club. We talk everything about founders, investors, startups, and today Paris Mansouri and I are hosting our weekly show called Anybody's Game, where we interview amazing people such as Mike Fata, who we're interviewing today. So you can be listening to this here on Clubhouse, of course, or watch live with us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Definitely invite you to go there. And we're going to open the stage up to questions here in just a moment. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand and we'll start pulling you up. And if you're in the audience or you're watching on video, you can ask a question in the comments and we will bring it up here in just a moment as well. So are we on to rapid fire?
Not yet. I do have one more question before rapid fire. And it's talking about the exits that you just mentioned. I mean, I laugh, but and we say it so easily that you had $100 million exit and then 500 million. These are insane numbers. So I don't think I've ever heard you talk about, and obviously those of us who know you know that you're super grounded and just not that guy, not the flashy sort of individual. Obviously, you like the nicer things in life as well. But I would love to know, because of such humble beginnings, to have an exit, a first exit at that number, when you come home after, the due diligence, after all the paperwork, and because like a $100 million exit doesn't happen in a week, it's a process. So I would love to know where your mind was at after that first exit, considering where you started, like that night. Did you start planning what you were going to do? Like, were you thinking, oh, well, that was nice, like, I'm done, or on to the next, like, and I know that you stayed on to Manitoba Harvest, but I'd love to know the mindset of someone, because we talk about what it's like to climb, and the journey and the obstacles, but that's a really beautiful moment and a lot to celebrate. And I would love to know what that moment was like for you.
Well, yeah, you had it right there, Paris, that it's, well, and every business is different, but the first time we sold Manitoba Harvest, it was about a 14-month process altogether, where we, the selection of an investment banker, going through the investment banking process, meeting with about 100 companies and going down into a funnel until finally the company that did purchase the Manitoba Harvest for $132 million, and the legal paperwork and the deal that was done. It was a Iron Man of Ironmans to be able to get through that. Very stressful. I was tired in the end, and so when the deal actually closed, the day that the deal closed, and back then it was still like checks that were had. It wasn't even, bank wires weren't the normal thing. And so going down to the lawyer's office and to the bank and cashing the check, which was more money than I could ever dream that I would have, felt really good. I popped way too many bottles of champagne because I thought that I should, and that was probably, it was probably a good thing. But and then that all that wore off, and I just went back to kind of normal. And hey, I still buy the same pair of jeans and t-shirts that I did then, and so the money doesn't buy happiness, but I have realized that it does buy you time, and with my time, I try to work on my health and my continuous improvement, and that makes me not only a better person, it's made me a better business person, and creates more success on itself. But timing is everything. If you look at the second time that Manitoba Harvest sold, it was really based around the U.S. had just legalized hemp after 20 years of lobbying. Canada had legalized recreational marijuana. The cannabis companies in Canada had a very large amount of money from going public, and I saw the opportunity there to sell the business, and we did that deal in 6 weeks for $420 million, and $419 million. I like to say 420 in 6 weeks, and it was just because the time really worked up, and there was no investment bankers involved, and so I think that I wouldn't have it any other way, but it hasn't changed me as a person, and I think that's the most important part.
I know that when we do intros on Clubhouse, and to anyone in the room who's heard your intros, or who's heard you introduce yourself, or who's looked you up, or who's worked with you, or who've checked out the Fata Fleischman toolbox, we know what you're about and we know that story, but I never, it never escapes me what huge accomplishment that is. Especially words, sometimes the more that you say it, the more you forget the weight of it. But what you managed to accomplish, I just again want to take a moment to recognize you for it. And the fact that you not only stood at the top of the mountain and kept climbing further up is just a reminder, and so inspirational, because it reminds us that it's not just the massive exit, it's the road, it's the integrity, it's who we are and who we decide to be afterwards that matters so much as well. So thank you so much for that. I wanted to definitely acknowledge that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And it doesn't go without, hey, Paris, I can tell you that I take slack from some people. Some people actually say, and it's not a small amount. There's a decent amount of people say, why do you tell people that you sold your business for $500 million, or like, why are you promoting that? And I'm like, well, I'm super proud of it. I'm super proud of it. I came from nothing. I built something that was great. I was highly rewarded for it, and the most important part, I don't think I'm anything extra special than anyone else. I think anyone can do that. So I want to be an example to people of what is possible in an entrepreneur's life and an entrepreneur's journey. And to do that, I need to take a little bit of heat from people thinking that I'm like showing off, or it's anything but proud. And so it's not that's not even easy. I could more easily kind of hide and not put myself out there. But I don't think that's not the example that I want to be to others. But that's the behind the scenes that probably people don't think about when you kind of put yourself out there like that too.
At the same time, though, anyone who says that has missed the point of what you really should be showing off about, which is your skills and your abilities. Again, not to be like hype woman and fangirl, but like the ability to do what you did. It's not like you had a TikTok video that went viral and now you have a bunch of sponsors and you're living this like fantastic life. This was massive amounts of work. But anyways, recognition to you and to anyone who's just joining the room right now, who's just hearing those numbers. Really, we're going to get into, near the end of this interview, we're going to get to what you're doing with Fata Fleischman and what's coming up next. And I think that speaks volumes as to who you are more than these numbers as well. So rapid fire, Jonathan, it's time.
Rapid fire. All right. So, Mike, what we do here with rapid fire is exactly what you think it is. We're going to ask you a question, and the first thing that pops in your head is what comes out. So, I think we know the answer to this one, but what's your favorite social platform?
LinkedIn.
What's your screen time usage?
Highly fluctuates each week, but if it gets over 8 hours a day, because I do work off my phone as well, if it gets over 8 hours a day, I get a little nervous, and I try to crank it down the next week by going and spending more time with Mother Nature.
Who's an entrepreneur that you admire?
I'm going to say Greg Fleisch, because he's in the audience and doing some work with Greg. So.
Which we can't wait to hear more about. Next one, your top 3 must follows on any social platform. So the 3 accounts that you think we should be following, doesn't matter which platform it is.
Well, I think people should follow me on LinkedIn if they're not already, because I'd like to engage with you and be friends. So I can put myself out there. I enjoy Mark Hyman, Dr. Mark Hyman. I think he shares a wealth of knowledge, and I think probably Instagram is the best place to connect with him. And I see Erica in the audience, and I really like what Erica's doing on LinkedIn and in the CPG food community. So those would be my 3.
Erica from Brodo.
All right, this is my favorite question to ask, and that is, you can only listen to one artist for the rest of time. Who's it going to be?
Bob Marley.
Last rapid fire is the one thing you want everyone to know about you.
I'm going to live to 100.
Not 101. Nice. I love it. That's a great goal to have. So with that, if you're in the audience and you have a question, please do raise your hand. Come on up. I'd love for you to ask a question to Mike. And in the meantime, while we wait for those hands to come on up, we do have a question from LinkedIn. I'm going to put it up here. And the question is, we sort of answered this, but hey, why not ask it again? So knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to a startup today?
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate it. Like, find your passion, something that you would do for free forever for the rest of your life is number one. And then get some mentors, other people that have done what you want to do and can just help you along the way with some casual conversations or some direction. Those would be the 2 things that I would offer to the startup.
Before we go to Jason, I do have a follow-up on that. Getting a mentor is oftentimes such a difficult thing for individuals, or you don't know how to approach someone. What is your suggestion for somebody who's looking for a mentor?
You got to put yourself out there and be clear with what you're doing, and because mentor-mentee relationship is a 2-way street. Mentors get something off of mentees, and so you have to be unique. You have to be yourself, and be sure of that, I think. And then you got to put yourself out there. I think Clubhouse is a great app for that. I mean, I've mentored a number of people on Clubhouse just because it's easier for me, and that's part of this whole mass mentorship, to get out in front of hundreds of people instead of one by one, because I don't always have the time for that. But you could do that in other social platforms. You could do that in trade shows, which is kind of the way that I met my mentors back in the day. And so be sure of yourself, be clear with what you want to do, and then go and put yourself out there, and you'll attract the people that want to help you out.
Well, excellent. Well, looks like we have a couple folks here on the stage. So, Jason, did you have a question for Mike?
Yeah, thank you guys very much. This general group of people at Founder Streams has been tremendously valuable to me in my venture over the last few months. So thank you guys, Mike, and thank you for the Hemp Hearts. You got me through a lot of century rides. You became part of my ritual for, just generally adding some substance to my shakes when I was too tired to eat. So it helped a lot. Thank you. But I have one question. We have a delivery platform. It's a smart delivery platform, and we're hoping for some better feedback from people who are getting delivered meals. But a lot of people have been asking us to deliver samples of their product because we have this feedback system. So, Mike, what would be one question you'd want answered from a consumer who got a sample with their meal? Thank you, guys.
Oh, that's a good question, and thanks for the props on the Hemp Hearts, Jason. To your great health. Love meeting people that, and I'd probably want to ask you like 100 questions because on brand research, but I know that's not what's going to happen now. We've done a lot with sample boxes, sampling directly, and then single serve samples of Hemp Hearts and the other products over the years. And I'm a big fan of the sample boxes, both because you can deliver a sample to that target customer, but then get that feedback. The number one question to ask them when they got the product, it would have to be, would they recommend it to family or friends? Would they recommend the product to someone else? Would be the number one question I would want to ask them. But there's probably 10 or 20 questions that I want to ask, but that's the number one that popped to the top of mind.
Thank you. And feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to answer 100 questions on Hemp Hearts. I eat them all the time. I used to put them in a lot of things, but now I just grab a fistful. It's kind of gross and primitive, but I like them. I just like the taste of them. I used to try to hide them in shakes and put them in my cereal, and then I was like, you know what, I actually just like them. So, but I'd be happy to answer a ton of questions offline. But thank you. That's really useful because I think that probably is the most motivating and self-reflective question you can ask somebody in that path. So thank you. Because I need to start conceptualizing that for people. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just for the record, I've said it before, but I eat about 5 pounds of Hemp Hearts a month, and I have for 23 years now. So it's probably like 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 pounds of Hemp Hearts that I've consumed, and it's definitely the staple in my diet. And if anyone listening hasn't tried Hemp Hearts, then go out there and you should, especially you, Bernardo. Shame on you if you haven't tried Hemp Hearts.
That's hilarious. Calling out Bernardo on the stage. Mike, do you have a lifetime supply of Hemp Heart? Is that why? Is that what's happening?
I don't. I buy my Hemp Hearts. The Manitoba Harvest doesn't send them to me anymore. So I buy them on Amazon or at our local health food store here, Vita Health, and it's in a 5-pound bag. You can get the 5-pound natural and organic bags, and Amazon, you can auto ship one of those bags a month, which is a good way to do it. And then if you're pacing properly with the founder. So.
Cracking up. Thank you for that tip. Thank you, Jason, for that awesome question. Russell, packaging scientist, welcome to the stage. Always a pleasure to see you. What is your question for Mike?
Thanks, Parrot. Hey, Mike. My question for you is, so I've learned a lot about founders and natural product founders through your interviews. Thank you so much for that. My question for you is, I know it's stressful to be a founder. It can be in a full-time or more than a full-time job. For you, though, what is your ideal way to disconnect from business, relax, and recharge? I want to learn a little bit more about the personal side of Mike.
Thanks, Russell. And thanks for consuming some of my content, and glad to hear that you're enjoying it. I'm big into Mother Nature. I'm my happiest when I'm in the woods or in the forest, or just generally engulfed by Mother Nature. When I was young, I was a Boy Scout for 7 years, and every summer we'd go on a canoe trip for 2 or 3 weeks with no technology, nothing but a canoe and some food and powdered milk and different things. And I was very, very, I wasn't super happy then, but I because I was young, I didn't always want to be there. But I was it stuck in me. And so as I've got older, that is definitely my happy place. And so if you didn't catch that earlier, I'd say if I overdo technology, if I overdo the stress of business, I'll just go for a walk in the woods or go sit out on the grass and be one with Mother Nature.
Thank you, Russell, for the question. Prasad, welcome to the stage. What is your question for Mike?
Thank you, Paris. Mike, great accomplishments and making world healthier and better. Now, mentoring startups is a great way to go. What do you look in a company before you agree to be a mentor?
That's a good question, Prasad. I don't think I have an agenda or a checklist of being a mentor. I mentioned it earlier, but I think mentor and mentee is a two-way relationship. And so, the companies that I've mentored up until now, I wanted to make sure that I could add value to the entrepreneur, and so I understood their business, and that was important to me. So it was a lot in agriculture and food manufacturing and brand. And then I realized that I have something, as I've gained more experience in business, I have a lot to offer to a lot of different businesses. And so I've been doing more instead of long-term mentorship. Some of them have been just short, and sometimes it's just I've kind of done three things: a 30-minute strategy chat, a 90-minute business tune-up, or a 4-hour session where I'll take that founder through a strategic planning session. I gotta like the product, I gotta like the person, and want to spend time with them, and then I'm happy to share in that way. But I do get a tremendous amount of requests nowadays. Like, it's on the daily, and I can't satisfy all those requests because I don't have enough time in the day, even with more than 50% of my schedule nowadays is giving back. And so that's why we've tried to create more tools, the toolbox, or using Clubhouse and other kind of mediums like this for more mass mentorship.
Thank you.
Your question, Prasad. Arazu, welcome to the stage. A pleasure to see you. What's your question for Mike?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Paris. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Mike. Can you guys actually hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay, because before I ask my question to Mike, I just wanted to say something because I think it's actually important as to how highly I consider, or my regards to Mike's are. I'm actually on vacation, and I haven't had a vacation ever since, I guess, like the beginning of 2019. And I can tell you guys that like life went upside down ever since then. So even on my vacation, when I saw the Paris's notification that you're interviewing Mike, I was like, oh, I have to attend for this. So I am here. That's why I'm asking if there's a lot of noise. But with that being said, Mike, so I am in the midst of a change or doing something new. What would you say, or how would you say, what would you say to a new founder when they're like experiencing their deepest fears? Like, how do you overcome that? Do you just have to do it? What would be your recommendation, your advice for that, taking that first step?
Well, thanks, Arzu, for coming for joining us when you're on vacation. That means something to me, so I appreciate that. I think that in the first part there, when you said you're in transition, what I've learned from the times that I've been in major transition, and it's happened when we sold the business, it happened when I got divorced, it happened when my mom passed away unexpectedly. Being in transition, the most important thing you can do is to be really mindful and be in the moment, because it's in those times that if you're not mindful and you're not in the moment, then your mind can wander. It can wander to the past. It can wander to the future. Fear then comes into the picture, and I'm a big believer in fear and worry is asking for things that you don't want in your life. And so it very, very, very important to be mindful. And I think mindfulness comes different to everybody, but me personally, it ties into my whole health lifestyle and practice. So meditation, yoga, exercise, eating healthy, all keeps me in that kind of mindful space. And so that's how I would answer that question to you: is focus on being your best self, focus on being in the moment, and as you're transitioning into a new business, that's going to best prepare you, and not not leave the day, not leave the moment, because I don't think it's going to add any value.
But yeah, sometimes the fear takes over, but I guess I'm trying to. But thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much, Arzu, for coming up with that question. Prasad, Jason, Russell, it was a pleasure having you guys. We appreciate you guys tuning in, being here, and also coming up. Before we close out the room, Mike, we have a question that we like to end the interview with from all our guests, and it's something that we would like you to do with our audience, a question that you would like to leave them with, something that they could think about as they're going about their day, evening, wherever they are, whatever time zone they're in. Just a question you'd like our audience to ponder.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Paris. Turn it around on the audience. I like that. The question I would ask everyone to think about is, how often, I'm hoping it's times a day, but how often are you thinking about your health, which may be your nutrition, it may be your exercise program? How often are you bringing that to the forefront of your mind? Because I think that's it's really important to me, and I hope it's important to all of you.
Health is
right. So yeah, health as well. So thanks for sharing that. And the final question is simply, what's coming up for you that we should know about?
Well, I'd feel amiss if I didn't plug the Fata Fleischman toolbox, at least here, and it started now, I think, like 12 weeks ago, and Greg asked me if I wanted to put together a resource and promote it out to the entrepreneur community of basically our tools and templates and forms that we've used over the last 20 years to grow our businesses and to currently grow our businesses, and so that's taken on a bit of life now, and iterations, and other people contributing to the toolbox, and hundreds and hundreds of downloads from entrepreneurs, some master classes here on Clubhouse on walking through the toolbox. Now we're doing trainings on that with accelerator groups, with mentorship groups, one-on-one with entrepreneurs. So feel very good about that. Just launched the website, which big shout out to TF Labs and Jonathan and the crew for helping with that. It feels really good. I've been getting literally every day entrepreneurs checking in with me, telling me how it's changing their game because they have access to some of those items, and I think Greg and I feel good that people aren't being charged for it, and they don't have to pay to get resources. And again, I might coin that term mass mentorship, but just reach more people. So that's at the forefront of my mind. And there's a lot of I'm involved right now. I think I have 6 companies in my investment portfolio. I'm probably going to add a couple more to that over the next maybe the back half of this year, and maybe get involved with a couple of the companies personally at a board level or advisor level, and but nothing crazy. I feel like I'm through a lot of the transition I've been through in life over the last couple of years, and now trying to enjoy it and have a healthy balance between work, healthy lifestyle, and giving back.
Classic. I love that resource. I'm glad that we could support that as well. And you know, I said final question, but actually there is one last final question, and that's simply, what are the best ways that people can keep in touch with you, follow along with you, get in contact with you? Just pay attention to what Mike Fata is doing.
Well, LinkedIn is number one for sure. The best way to connect is DM me on LinkedIn, and engage or follow or connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can see some of my things that I share. I have to probably say now, just because I've shared a couple things on Instagram. Maybe it's going to be a fun, wacky side of Mike. I don't know. That's what people do, but I've found a different way of sharing has felt good over the last week or two. So you can also connect with me there. Although I like the DMs on LinkedIn better if you're trying to reach me.
Mike, when you come to Montreal, we'll do a couple Instagram content creator shoots. I'll set up the photo shoots for you. You'll have content for Instagram for months.
You'll have to do the latest dance trend, whatever it is at that moment in time.
Do you have TikTok, Mike? Do we have to get you on TikTok next?
No, thank you. On the TikTok, I have enough. I think Instagram Reels is just like TikTok, and there's a couple times already late at night that it dragged me in, and I can't ever get that time back in life. And I've seen more dances than I probably need to. But hey, I can dance, Jonathan. You know, you may see some of the dance reels that Paris and I put together in Montreal, because can't dance like Bernardo. I've seen his reels, but I got a little step in myself as well.
All right. Well, I look forward to those, to the reels, to more content, to the Fata Fleisch Fund magic that you guys are up to in the resource, and to many more rooms on Venture Park together. Mike, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It really was a pleasure, and I'm so glad that you were willing to go extra. We talked about work, we talked about social, we talked about your story, and we also talked about things that we haven't, like just the backstories behind the success as well. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for affording us this opportunity.
Yeah, no, it was fun. My pleasure. Thanks so much for doing it, and keep on cranking out the good content. You guys are helping other entrepreneurs as well, so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Appreciate you saying that. And Paris, as always, a pleasure to co-host with you. For those listening, again, you can watch this all over again if you want to on YouTube or LinkedIn and Twitter. And we do this once a week. So join us here next week. Who's our guest next week, Paris?
Have Mitch Joel, who is a brilliant marketer. He's a global marketing expert. I mean, he's worked with like Google and Shopify and Walmart and LG and many others. Keynote speaker, columnist for multiple organizations, including the Harvard Business Review and Inc. magazine. He hosts his own podcast. Really brilliant. Multiple time best-selling author. It's going to be great insight on marketing.
Excellent. So I'm looking forward to that. And then just a quick plug. We actually are doing an accelerator, as we mentioned at the beginning, the Founder Streams Accelerator. This Saturday is going to be our investor showcase. So we'll have our 10 companies doing some of the most amazing pitches that you'll hear or ever see. And then they're going to be followed with 10 minutes of Q&A from some investors. So definitely great lessons and learnings for folks who are listening in the audience. And who knows, maybe there's some deals to be made there. So again, Paris, thank you so much. Mike, thank you for joining us. Everybody, we'll see you on Clubhouse or throughout socials or on LinkedIn. And look forward to everybody having a great week. Talk to y'all soon.